Celebrating the harvest on this Thanksgiving weekend, we thank farmers for the food we eat. On this episode of Grow, a look at a modern hog farm that puts ham on your dinner table. Plus, more drought and more severe droughts. Could cover crops be part of the climate change solution? And are low grain prices the new normal? And what about land prices on the farm? Get ready to grow. Extreme weather can be devastating for farmers. Now some say climate change could result in more droughts and more severe drought, but they say farmers could also be part of the solution. Here's our top story. Nebraska's 2012 drought was bigger, stronger, and faster.
We've really seen extreme weather wreaking havoc on our farms.
Claire O'Connor is the fifth generation raised on her family farm in Nebraska. Now a staff attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council. They put out a report saying farmers can protect the land by growing cover crops, things like rye and turnips after corn and beans have been harvested.
Having those living roots growing in the soil can really help hold the soil in place and prevent some of that erosion.
Steve Nelson of Nebraska Farm Bureau discounts the report as the work of Hollywood activists.
Is really too little, too late. Agriculture, farmers and ranchers are very good at finding new technologies and adopting new technology.
But the NRDC says farmers could capture enough carbon to have the same result as pulling 4 million cars off the road by planting cover crops on half of all corn and soybean acres.
In Nebraska would be the equivalent of taking nearly 540,000 cars off of the road.
Claire O'Connor would like the government to encourage farmers like her dad to do more.
Farmers who are using cover crops should get essentially a good driver discount on their crop insurance.
And with world leaders meeting in Paris on climate change, environmental advocates want cover crops to be part of the discussion.
We want to make sure that our policymakers don't forget about soil as a tool that can be used to help combat these challenges.
Farmers may be able to make money by not planting on some of their land. More than 56 meetings about the Conservation Reserve Program will be held across the state to answer landowner questions and offer a chance to sign up. The meetings will be held between December 1st and February 26th. Scientists have discovered what they call a magic gene that could help fight wheat disease. Here's more on this exciting discovery.
Steve, this is a new defense mechanism for wheat. It involves cloning a wheat disease-resistant gene. Now, these magic genes help wheat resist 4 fungal diseases. You may have heard of wheat rust. Well, these diseases cause up to $2.9 billion in grain losses worldwide each year. Breeding these genes with high-yielding varieties provides a strong, longer-lasting protection. This cloned gene will be easier to deploy and is ideal for organic and conventional farming by reducing the input cost of fungicide applications. Now, you can see this full interview. All you have to do is go to our website and click on NTV's Grow. Back to you, Steve.
Are you sick of turkey leftovers yet this Thanksgiving weekend? Or are you among the millions of families, mine included, who enjoyed ham for the holiday? New hog operations continue to pop up across central Nebraska, giving us a glimpse of what real pig farming is all about.
There's a comfort zone right here in front with the mats for them to lay on.
Pigs stay warm even on a cold, rainy day. Hog farming has changed with barns like these.
We want to raise the animal in the least stress environment that we possibly can.
Thomas Livestock Company of Broken Bow operates the facility, owned by Olson Cattle Company of Minden.
We were looking at a way to expand without gaining any more ground.
Dave Olson wanted to bring his son back, the 4th generation, to farm here. Buying more land didn't make sense, so he decided to add hogs, which produce what he calls organic fertilizer, manure.
It should go right from the pit, right into the ground with a minimum amount of disturbance to anybody.
Holistic production, using the product from the animal to raise the corn that we feed back to them.
Confinement operations have critics. Concerns include water pollution. Supervisors here say they've reduced environmental impact through technology, something they showed off during an open house.
I don't know how many times I've heard, I had no idea you had this nice a facility for pigs.
Now you'll notice there are no hogs here right now. That's because of what they call biosecurity. After this open house, everything will be cleaned out. And normally when workers come in for the day, they have to shower in and shower out.
All outside clothing, shoes are kept outside.
You get 6,000 hogs in one location, you really have to be kind of careful.
We don't want to bring any diseases into the pigs.
There's also an economic impact. The Olsons will pay about $14,000 in property taxes to their local school alone. Supervisors say it starts by taking care of the pigs.
Doing what's right for people, doing what's right for the pig.
And while there's room for growth in hog farming, Nebraska continues to be a leader in cattle feeding. Nebraska feedlots with capacity of 1,000 or more head contained 2.45 million cattle on feed as of November 1st, according to the USDA, up slightly from last year. Placements during October totaled 645,000 head, down 2% from a year ago. Fed cattle marketings for the month of October totaled 445,000 head, up 3% from last year. And while there's room for growth in hog farming, Nebraska continues to be a leader in cattle feeding. Nebraska feedlots with capacity of 1,000 or more head contained 2.45 million cattle on feed as of November 1st, according to the USDA, up slightly from last year. Placements during October totaled 645,000 head, down 2% from a year ago. Fed cattle marketings for the month of October totaled 445,000 head, up 3% from last year. A couple of years ago, drought was driving some to reconsider growing sorghum. This year, though, it was the opposite, too much rain that had that effect, and it turned out to be a banner year for the crop many know as milo.
It does not have any red color in there.
For marginal farmland, it's hard to find a crop that uses less water than sorghum. This year, though, it wasn't the lack of rain, but too much that resulted in twice as many acres planted in Nebraska.
We had some corn that didn't get planted to corn, and so they switched to sorghum because the planting window is a little bit wider for sorghum. We actually had a surprisingly good growing season, and my goodness, harvest has just gone amazingly well.
And the latest figures show 106 bushels an acre average yield, best in the nation.
That looks good for our industry because the last few years we've really been lagging behind. We need to step up and get this sorghum industry on the right track again.
Mexico and Japan are the traditional markets, buying the crop as livestock feed.
The last couple of years, China came on in the market in a big way.
There are also challenges for a crop that's far behind corn and soybean production.
There's not a lot of places that take sorghum, so you have to be careful.
The Sorghum Board is trying to change that. It helps the grain is gluten-free.
Certainly looking at restaurants, restaurant chains, the food service industry.
And because it uses less water, it's appealing for ethanol use.
In fact, the University of Nebraska will be the lead entity in a $13.5 million research project looking at sorghum as an alternative for biofuels production.
Corn is still king, but there's plenty for the Sorghum Board to brag about.
So kind of a banner year for sorghum.
AGP announces plans for a new soybean processing plant. Egg Processing Incorporated, a cooperative, announced the selection of Aberdeen, South Dakota as the location for a new soybean processing plant. It'll be the 10th processing plant for the company and its first in South Dakota. Farmer producers across the United States own AGP, headquartered in Omaha. Farm-raised fish into vegetarians. That's the goal of some researchers and the soybean industry. Companies traditionally have fed their fish pellets containing anchovy, menhaden, and herring. But the harvest of those small species has pretty much flatlined, driving up the cost of pellet feed. And that's where soybeans come in. One South Dakota State University fisheries scientist is developing a soy protein that's more tasty and digestible as a way to reduce the need to use wild-caught fish in food for farm-raised fish. Wilcox Hildreth FFA celebrates a milestone years in the making. Members of the FFA program hosted a ceremonial groundbreaking for their new 60 by 100-foot egg facility, which will be under construction across from the school in the coming weeks. It was funded by selling banner space to area businesses. From woodworking to agronomy, the new project isn't just for FFA students, but also students in shop classes.
That just strengthens ag in general and will make our program stronger. Hopefully our program will grow with our new building, so we're excited.
A lot of people think agriculture is just farming, but this just shows that there are so many opportunities involved in agriculture, and I think that, you know, that strengthens everybody's hope that you can find something to do in agriculture, even if it's not plowing the field.
Students say they hope to have the building up and running in the next few months. And I'm here in Ord, where FFA students have been involved in a unique harvest. The kids in the Ord FFA program work with Green Plains, the local ethanol plant, and harvest about 75 acres. Harvest was a little bit delayed though this year because of the weather.
Well, we've got some moisture and stuff, and that affects how the corn dries and everything, so we've had to reschedule stuff and because the corn hasn't dried and stuff.
We will have much more in a couple of weeks when we will honor Ord FFA kids as our Farm Youth of the Month. Passing down the family farm, state leaders say there are some workshops you should attend. Nebraska Agriculture Director Greg Iboss says the free events can help begin the planning process. Workshops will discuss trusts, wills, life estate deeds, and programs to help beginning farmers. The one-day workshops will be held at locations throughout the state. The first one scheduled December 2nd in Hartington. What's the outlook for land prices in agriculture? We will talk with the department chair of Kansas State's Ag Economics program up next.